Hi everyone, and we're still at ZimZam, and we've just witnessed the second panel discussion that featured FKM's Jed. Jed, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm well, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on this special interview just after your panel discussion. But very quickly, Jed, you've been speaking to and obviously been on this panel discussion that's obviously looking at Zambia, Zimbabwe projects. How encouraged are you by what you're hearing in terms of how it fits, all these projects fit into the strategies for FKM?
Thanks very much for the question. So I've been extremely encouraged by what I've seen and heard at this conference so far. I'm excited by the collaboration that's happening across all of the member nations of the Southern African Power Pool. It's nice to see members from Zambia's state power utility, ZESCO, in close touch with Zimbabwe's state power utility. Additionally, excited by the developments in Zambia specifically related to open access and the liberalizing of the power industry. It just invites participation from private sector players, which should hopefully increase Zambia's generation capacity and make the country more robust and ready for growth. We have 3 million tons that we're targeting, as everyone knows, and in order to get there, power is necessary. So excited to see what's to come of this, and First Quantum is enthusiastically participating in these solutions. Thank you.
All right. Now, well, just one more question before you go. So you were on this particular panel discussion. Are there any specific things that you've heard that obviously you will take home with you to say that, okay, look, I think there's progress that's being made on various projects?
Well, it sounds like the financiers are ready to come to the table in a big way. They have demonstrated a commitment to supporting the power sector, to making capital available, and so we're excited to see how that actually materializes over the course of the next few years. Right now we're in an emergency. The emergency, of course, will alleviate like any emergency usually does, and so it's the long-term commitment that we're looking for, and from what we've heard so far, it seems that we have it.
All right, thanks so much, Jed. We'll look forward to catching up at the next event.
Thank you.
Kalaluka Itwi is my name. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Zanaco Bank PLC, which means I'm responsible effectively for managing various aspects of the bank's finance operations, financial reporting, regulatory compliance, and all of the elements that come along with the functions of the finance department. I basically oversee that and support the chief executive as well as the board of directors. So in a nutshell, yeah.
Absolutely. No, and thank you so much for that highlight. I think our viewers now have a better understanding of who exactly I'm speaking to this morning. But as I had indicated earlier, we obviously had an opportunity of meeting last week at the Zambia Zimbabwe Energy Projects Summit in Vic Falls Town in Zimbabwe. Right. You were actually on a panel discussion with other key delegates at the event. Are you able to just give us an overview of what your key focus areas were on that particular panel, and what were some of your key takeaways from other members who contributed to that discussion?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it was a very insightful conversation. Perhaps let me start from there. The panel was very well represented. We had representation from the political side, the ministers of energy of both Zambia and Zimbabwe. We had delegation from the EU. I myself was coming from the private sector. I think we had another colleague as well from Standard Bank of South Africa from the private sector. And my input was really to bring a private sector perspective in terms of how we are supporting energy projects. And the key discussion there is what will it take in terms of the necessary reform to get these projects over the line. And the truth of the matter is you need effort from all directions. And I think that's why a multi-stakeholder approach was taken. You need the regulators on board. We had the regulators on board. We have international partners. His Excellency, the Trade Ambassador of the UK to Zimbabwe was there. We had international financiers as well, coming through as well, and I from the private sector. So very insightful conversation, and what I was basically speaking to is some of the initiatives we as Zanaco Bank PLC currently have in place in order to support these projects. I did mention that we have relationships with some international financiers, such as British International Investments, BII, European Investment Bank. We also have lines as well with the World Bank, to mention but some of them. And the arrangement basically is, as we are able to secure funding, I omitted to mention very materially that we are also GCF accredited, Global Climate Fund. And that's a significant achievement and place for the bank to be in. And through these relations with these partners, we are able to provide finance for various projects, various energy-related projects. Our focus is quite broad as Zanaco Bank PLC because we are ESG sensitive. We believe in not only profit, but people and the planet as well. So our ESG strategy goes broad to also look at renewable energy, and those are the areas that we focus primarily on providing financial support. So in a nutshell, I think that was really my perspective bringing to that panel conversation.
And thank
Sure.
you so much for sharing. At least we've gotten a bit more insight in terms of how Zanaco Bank is obviously positioning itself around energy financing solutions. Events such as this obviously offer an opportunity for the likes of yourselves, the banks, to interact with key stakeholders. There were obviously some various networking events, such as, for example, you guys managed to also go like on a tour of one of the plants. What were some of your key insights speaking to other delegates, prospective developers of projects and other like-minded financiers around the energy space, and how optimistic are you coming out of that event?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised actually from my attendance of that seminar. Very impressed with the extent and the level of collaboration across from various stakeholders. Everyone has come to the party to resolve and address the energy crisis issues. And we did speak about a number of the challenges, both in conference and outside conference, issues around bankability, and how can governments come in to support. What are the needs of the foreign international financiers? How can we have blended finance solutions that pull public, in the form of public-private partnerships, if I could put it that way, that are able to pull funding sources from both public and private. And we also did recognize the fact that a number of the smaller projects that deal with the more rural electrification tend to be medium-sized enterprises, and there are challenges associated with medium-sized enterprises. How can we be able to provide support to ensure that these entities are able to meet the qualification criteria to access funding, to access finance? So those are some of the very interesting conversations. And having visited the solar plant, I think it was really bringing it into reality, really bringing it into focus, just to see the extent of investment that is required. From a land surface area perspective, you're talking of over 8,000 solar panels to generate only 5 megawatts. The plant we visited is installed with a 25 megawatt capacity, but is piloting currently 5 megawatts. And even just to see the extent of that, it's huge and massive. And it just makes all of us realize that this is a big call to action. We all need to come to the table. But I must say I'm really impressed with the region. I mean, we have initiatives like the Southern Africa Power Pool, all of the countries in the region collaborating, working together. We have Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia grid as well. So I think we are not there yet, but I certainly like to say we are facing the right direction. I say before you head the right direction, you need to face the right direction. So I believe we are facing the right direction. I believe we are heading the right direction. And if we can continue on this track, we'll certainly be able to see results. The political will is there. His Honor, the Vice President of Zimbabwe, was there to support us, and that just underscores the fact that we have support at the highest level for this regional initiative. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Mr. Kalaluka, for sharing with us your views. In terms of the road ahead, we obviously, one of the key things that I took away, for example, was, never waste a good crisis. How is the bank positioning itself for 2025 and going forward in terms of assisting, in energy projects in Zambia and within the region?
Yeah, so from where we are sitting, and I loved that expression, never waste a crisis, because I believe crisis is the mother of innovation, and certainly this crisis has caused all of us to sit up, and so indeed, let's not waste it. I mean, we will continue with our sustainability strategy. We actually had representation at COP29 in Baku, and that's how seriously Zanaco we take this. So we will continue on that track. Like I mentioned, there are certain inherent challenges in the sector in terms of capacity of projects to implement. So we'll continue providing support outside finance. That's around strengthening governance and just ensuring that, prospective project implementers have the capacity. And we'll continue working with various cooperating partners. So no deviation from our strategy. Ours is scaling up. So this is something new, I think, to all of us, and so it will take time to build up and grow. We are not going to divert from that track. We'll be looking at scaling up, taking on lessons learned, and making progress and just going forward.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our coverage of ZimZam, and we have just witnessed the first panel discussion, which was moderated by Mr. Patrick Mwelwa of EY Zambia. Mr. Patrick, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Kenneth?
I'm fine. It's so wonderful to bump into you at ZimZam, but today is obviously day 2. Are you able to just give us an overview of your panel discussion and what the key focus areas were?
Yeah, so my panel was focused on the pipeline for projects, both renewable and hydro. Obviously, we know hydro is renewable, but in terms of wind, solar, and a few thermal ones, but also in terms of the ambitions of both countries for rural electrification. So we had RIA, Zambia, and RIA, Zimbabwe, highlighting some of their ambitions towards universal access. We know that's important. Economic development opportunities largely hinge on access to electricity. So that was the highlight of the panel. A lot of conversation around some of the projects in the pipeline, what is required to conclude, some of the regulatory changes that we need for them to come to conclusion.
Absolutely. Now, on day 1, we obviously witnessed, speeches from the Vice President of Zimbabwe, our Minister of Energy, and the Minister of Energy of Zimbabwe as well. How important is obviously the fiscal side in terms of, seeing through, some of the commitments on policy for energy? And from what you heard yesterday, are you encouraged by, the position that both governments are taking?
I'm very encouraged because, first of all, we do know that both countries' balance sheets are stretched. The ability to finance some of these projects, is limited. But what they can bring to the table is the political will, the ambition, but also the clarity around the regulation, some of the changes that we need. And I think the presence of the Vice President here, both Ministers of Energy, is a demonstration of both governments' commitment to ensuring that these projects, the expansion of access and electricity generation goes on. So they are both very keen, they are both very supportive, they recognize the challenge, they recognize the need, but at the end of it all, the private sector has to come to the table. What the government can do is provide an enabling environment, and I think they are committed to doing that. The private sector then needs to come up with the funding and the finance and the partnerships that we need to make this work.
Absolutely. And then any final key takeaways? I mean, obviously you have had a chance to interact with financiers as well. What are some of the key things that you've noted going forward that obviously might need to also be addressed, but also where the opportunities lie?
I think the big takeaway is, Zambia and Zimbabwe are neighbors. We have shared challenges, but we also have shared opportunities. And I think many conversations here are around how we can take advantage of those opportunities. Somebody did say, don't let a crisis go to waste. We've got a crisis around power, shortage of power, generation capacity, transmission capacity. I think for us, both countries see this as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for investment, but an opportunity also to invite partners to come and work with us in this journey.
My name is Susiku Nasinda, Associate Director of Climate Change and Sustainability Services at EY Zambia. We have been here over the last 48 hours attending the ZimZam Energy Projects Conference. This is a conference that brought together key stakeholders in the energy sector from Zimbabwe and Zambia to discuss the challenges and opportunities that lie in the energy sector in Zambia. As you might be aware, Zambia and Zimbabwe and the southern region in general experienced one of the worst droughts in living memory, and this has had adverse effects on electricity generation, considering that the two countries highly depend on hydropower for electricity. But this project, this particular conference, has brought together key public sector as well as private sector participants and stakeholders and consulting firms like ourselves to be able to discuss what opportunities lie ahead, what challenges are there, and how do we solve these challenges. As an energy climate finance expert myself, I was particularly intrigued about the discussions on blended finance, how the public sector can leverage on concessional financing to be able to provide and create the enabling environment, regulatory as well as policy, that is required to bring in private sector participation and financing in energy in the countries. The conference has been extremely good because private financiers, multilaterals such as the African Development Bank, the Ministry of Energy from Zambia, as well as Zimbabwe, the regulator from Zimbabwe, and other key stakeholders such as the Zambia Development Agency, and key private players such as the Copperbelt Energy Corporation are here. And as EY, it gives us a lot of delight to be able to be in a space where our voice can be heard, where we can provide solutions that are related to climate change, sustainability, issues around environmental, social, and governance, ensuring that as Zambia scales up its green finance ambitions, a firm like ours is still able to provide advisory services, is still able to provide the much needed assurances that are required by investors regarding key issues around green finance and to avoid greenwashing. So this has been a very, very important summit for us. We have been able to interact with key stakeholders, but most importantly, to be able to listen to the voice of the Zambian and Zimbabwean governments, to the voice of private developers, to the voice of financiers. And we believe that the 2024 energy crisis in Zambia provides a great opportunity for Zambia and Zimbabwe to have a serious rethink about their current energy strategies and to build strategies that will future-proof the two countries. Like they always say, never waste a good crisis. This particular crisis has been good, and I believe that it provides a springboard upon which the two countries, but more especially Zambia, can build a stronger energy future. We remain EY, and we are there to serve you in climate as well as sustainability services. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sylvester Hibajene. I'm here at Victoria Falls town. We've just finished attending a conference called ZimZam, which is basically Zimbabwe Zambia conference, an inaugural conference that the two countries have held to discuss power projects specifically. And basically it's been a 2-day conference. And what's been interesting is that the two countries are really pushing forward a number of reforms in the energy sector to ensure that this sector is very well invested in, attract private sector players in the sector. As we are aware, we have just been going through this terrible drought. We have had load shedding happening in both the countries because of the big portfolio that we have of hydropower generation, principally at Kariba, for Zambia, even here at Victoria Falls Power Station. Now, because the water level has been very, very low, we would not been able to generate enough power for our economic activities. So this conference, therefore, has been quite important in the light of that matter, so that we can accelerate projects and attract more investment, more players in the power sector in the two countries. As already noted, there is a lot of reforms going on, open access in Zambia, and our colleagues here in Zimbabwe have also done a similar kind of thing, that the market is open for private players. You can access the transmission system and find customers as an investor, the power generator, what we call IPP, independent power producer. The market is open for you to find a customer, whether it be a mine, a big industry, and so on. And clearly, the focus is mainly on what we call renewable energy. And in that context, the most promising one, as we are aware, is basically solar, because it's quick to deploy, not very expensive, and although it's got limitations of just being available during the day, but actually if you put battery storage, it extends the hours of availability of that power from solar much longer in the evening. But the thing is that we are very well endowed with this resource as two countries. We can even use existing water bodies like Kariba to actually put floating solar systems. So it's not competition between solar and hydro. They actually complement each other. So I think the message is that we need to really up the game in investment in solar, and also not forget, of course, hydro still will play an important role in the medium to long term. So we don't have to take our eyes away from that, but we need to ensure that we diversify seriously our power sources, whether it be hydro, solar, wind, even indeed coal, which Zimbabwe is much more highly endowed with. But Zambia, we have some core resources, and we are saying let's invest in all these so that we can be climate resilient. So that whatever happens, we can be safe and have enough power to meet our needs and our growth requirements as the two countries. Thank you so much.